At first, I thought Starmer's speech had hit a nerve with reform, because it's not just Nigel Farage that's been racing to the camera. Both Zia Youssef and Richard Tice were on Sky News, red-faced and furious, and openly accusing the Prime Minister of inciting violence. Tice claimed Starmer gave licence to Antifa and literally said take up arms, even threatens to hold the Prime Minister personally responsible if anything happens to reform activists.
There's a difference between free speech and inciting violence. And as far as we're concerned, the Prime Minister crossed the line. That's a matter of judgment. That's our judgment. And let me tell you and your viewers, if anything happens physically to any of our reform activists or elected councillors, frankly, I will hold the Prime Minister personally responsible.
And think about that. This is a party polling well, pitching itself as Britain's sensible alternative, and the chairman and Richard Tice are on national TV spinning conspiracy theories about state-sponsored attacks.
He cannot beat at the ballot box, so he's embarked on a campaign with his cabinet to incite violence against him. Keir Starmer is circling the drain. He knows that he can't beat Nigel at the ballot box.
Now, as I said before, this is what I thought at first. If you take that at face value, you could be forgiven the thinking that they're reacting to or even overreacting to Starmer's speech, calling Farage out on his racism. But here's the strangest part. They don't actually sound worried. They sound like he's willing it into an existence. The way they circle accusations, repeats it, dodges the direct questions. It almost feels like they want Farage cast as a martyr before it's even happened.
You concluded that last answer by saying he was intentionally inciting violence. Are you saying that, you know, I've held the former science minister, Peter Kyle, to account when he tried to liken Nigel Farage to Jimmy Savile. It was a massive leap. Are you really coming on here to say you think the Prime Minister wants harm to come to Nigel Farage? Because language is important.
Nigel, well, let me be clear.
That's what you. That's how your last answer concluded that.
So,
do you retract that, or do you stand by it?
Nigel is a close friend of mine. I think he's the future Prime Minister of this country. He's the bookmaker's favourite to be the next Prime Minister in this country, and he's well ahead in the polls. So the stakes are too high for me to mince my words. I think Keir Starmer knows that he cannot beat Nigel Farage at the ballot box. He cannot beat reform at the ballot box. And yes, I think that he has decided to embark on a campaign that is clearly, he knows, insightful of violence against him.
I think that sounds like an enormous leap to most people, but you didn't answer my question. Are you saying you think the Prime Minister wishes harm on Nigel Farage?
I think that he has embarked on a campaign of language specifically...
Please answer the question. Do you think the Prime Minister wishes harm on Nigel Farage? This is really important to clarify.
I think that he knows that he cannot beat him at the ballot box, so has decided to use this inflammatory language, along with his cabinet, to incite violence against him.
So that got me thinking, what if this is just more of the Trump playbook? What if, say, this isn't an isolated outburst? Zia Youssef's been laying the groundwork for this narrative for months. I mean, on Twitter, calling Labour the enemy of the British people, warning that Starmer's language will incite violence, and quoting Napoleon, never interrupt your enemy while they're making a mistake. It's all about casting Reform as the heroic victims of a corrupt state, while they're quietly using language that's just as every bit as inflammatory as what Starmer did. And while they cry about incitement, they were quite happy to have the self-proclaimed racist who's convicted for inciting racial hatred on stage at their party conference. And if this all feels familiar, that's because we've seen this play before. Trump claimed immigrants were eating cats and dogs.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs.
Farage, he went with swans.
If I said to you that swans were being eaten in royal parks in this country...
Trump had MAGA hats, Farage is pushing football shirts. Trump had Doge, Farage set up Doge. And when pressed, Tice couldn't point to the actual quote where Starmer said to anyone, take up arms. I mean, literally. The real line was about going into a political fight, armed not with just words but with action. A cliche that, you know, every party kind of uses.
But Richard,
it's literally what he said on his speech. He said, take up arms against the enemy.
My producer has found the quote, apparently is that those who are the enemy of national renewal, essentially that we should fight them. That just sounds because they're an enemy of national renewal. That sounds like... But people use the word fight and taking on their enemies in politics all the time. You and I have been around politics for a long time. That's quite a stretch, I would suggest here, Richard.
No, I don't suggest that at all. That's the language, and you've just reaffirmed that I'm correct. We
haven't found the word
our fury at what this Prime Minister is doing. He's giving licence to the likes of Antifa, and we're not having it. We're not having it. We're calling it out for what it is.
He's turned that into a call for violence because it keeps the narrative alive. It almost feels like they want Farage to be attacked. Remember this picture? It sent Trump's poll ratings through the roof. And then, have they now just seen an opportunity to have their own? I mean, what are the odds that Farage now gets attacked in the next few weeks? Because they've been pushing this over the past couple of days and using really aggressive language in these interviews. And I think that's why incitement talk matters. Reform isn't pushing the line that Starmer's just trying to get Nigel killed. It's almost like they're rehearsing a narrative for what happens if an incident does occur. They position it so any attack, real or even staged, instantly turns Farage from loudmouth politician into an untouchable martyr.
So you're saying he wishes harm on Nigel Farage, is what you're saying?
You need to ask Keir Starmer that, but I think if you look at the language, and again, I want to put this to you. You just said that, again, this is not a single errant comment. This is the government of the United Kingdom talking about a man who is the bookmaker's favourite to be the next Prime Minister.
It's an enormous leap.
You just said it is.
I'm sorry, it's an enormous. It's an enormous leap.
If I suggest you go and look up what stochastic terrorism is. And if you use language like battle, encourage your supporters to, quote, go into battle with, quote, an enemy that is a threat to our way of life in this country. You say that he flirted with Nazism, and 11 cabinet members come out and call him racist in the context of all of the threats that I see, sadly, almost every day against Nigel. Just this morning, I was in the car here, there's someone on Twitter who said that a sniper rifle could stop Nigel Farage, and was probably the only thing that could. David Bull has just pushed that tweet out. I'm sorry, I have seen people try to attack Nigel, try to attack our supporters and our members. So I take great issue with the notion that this is some great leap. The Prime Minister, if you think that this is such an outrageous thing, then you should ask yourself...
I will.
You should ask the Prime Minister directly why 11 of his cabinet ministers have all come out in a 48-hour period.
And I focused very clearly with Pat McFadden about the comments of David Lammy. I'm going to look up this obscure definition of terrorism, but essentially what you're saying by repeating that to me is not only do you say that you think the Prime Minister wishes harm on Nigel Farage, you're basically saying you think he's a terrorist.
Here's what I think. There are millions of people in this country who, if anything was to happen to Nigel Farage, will hold the Prime Minister squarely responsible for his actions.
And although I do think that this is a new plan that they've got in place, Farage did seem pretty annoyed when he jumped online to respond to Starmer's speech, which you can see in the video that's on screen now. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, and I'll see you next time.